Jordan B. Gorfinkel to Thinking Aloud. AKA Gorf is a cartoonist, musician, producer, director, and proud father, not necessarily in that order. For nearly a decade, Gorf managed a team of writers, artists, and creators on the Batman franchise for DC Comics, producing more than 2,000 stories in multiple mediums. Gorf's creations such as Batman, No Man's Land, and Birds of Prey have resulted in critically acclaimed and commercially successful publications. Gorf founded and operates Avalanche Comics Entertainment, ACE, a dynamic storytelling studio that produces marvelous creative content for corporations, brands, entertainment companies, and foundations. Gorf is the creator, writer, producer of the Amazon #1 bestseller, Passover Haggadah Graphic Novel, that we have on display right here in our studio. Gorf runs the Jewish Cartoon Workshop for schools, camps, and family programs, guiding participants in using professional tools to create Jewish humor cartoons, just like the professionals do, and then collecting them into a comic book for everyone to share and enjoy and learn from. In music, Gorf is a producer, performer, and director. He is responsible for many album music videos, including Voices for Israel, the acclaimed Jewish We Are the World-style charity benefit, a pioneer of Jewish a cappella. With the first professional Jewish harmony group, Bitachon, Gorf presently leads Kol Zimra, the interactive, energetic a cappella group for events and lifestyle celebrations, and Kol Tfilah, for bringing harmony to communities musically and interpersonally. Simcha and Gorfinkel is his music comedy duo with Rockapella founder Sean Altman. Gorf has performed all over the globe, including twice at the White House Hanukkah celebration, which was immortalized on The Daily Show on Comedy Central. Gorf tours North America and the world as a dynamic, empowering, inspirational speaker and scholar in residence for communities, retreats, conventions, and events. And we are so honored to bring Gorf to Valley Beth Shalom and the larger LA community. Welcome to Encino.
Thank you very much. With an introduction like that, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. So really, it's been real.
That's it.
Thank you, folks.
We have the two books on display. Go buy the Haggadah. Okay, so we sit right now between these two books. How would you say your comic form of the Book of Esther, put out by Koren, and we sit between Purim and Passover, the comic Koren Haggadah.
The Jewish graphic novel series is intended to take what's always been inherently wonderful about our Jewish texts and Jewish themes and history and so forth, and combine it with a Batman or Avengers style adventure graphic novel medium in order to make what is Jewish exciting for all generations. Bechol Dor Vador, right? Is Bechol Dor Vador even printed on the side of Valley Beth Shalom?
It's printed everywhere.
Printed everywhere.
It's printed. I have a tattoo of it on my back. So we are in this place where we're thinking about.
Can we have a cutaway to that, by the way, editors?
That's exactly right. We're sitting between Purim and Passover, and we're sitting in kind of a difficult time of stories, right? And I want to start with your story. Where did you grow up? How were you raised Jewishly? And how did your upbringing influence the mind that crafted Batman?
So for the sake of the editors, if you want, I'm going to give you my biography one more time, just in brief. Born, bar mitzvah,
Yep.
Bitachon,
Yep.
Batman,
Yep.
beyond.
Terrific.
I was raised in a good number of cities, probably 11 cities or so before the age of 20.
We attended the same day school in Chicago.
Solomon Schechter.
That's right.
Which has probably many names before Gross Solomon Schechter or whichever Solomon Schechter it was.
Right.
And I also went to Ida Crown Jewish Academy for a couple of years in the Chicago area as well. We lived in Highland Park.
That's right.
And here we are in Los Angeles. I moved quite a bit. And as a result, my situation was constantly changing. I was in different schools. I was in different summer camps. I went to a camp on the East Coast. I went to Camp Ramah on the West Coast. I went to Camp Moshava in the Chicago area or the Chicago, Wisconsin area. And during that period of time, I needed some comfort. I needed friends that I could depend on that would never change. And those were the superheroes. I was an introverted couch potato kid who had a really wonderful imagination, loved drawing, not terribly athletic. And for me, comic books were a solace, were a comfort. They were my rabbis, if you will. Mm-hmm. And of course, the morality in comic books is the good fights evil and the good vanquishes evil. And even in the Marvel characters, which are more shades of gray, where the Marvel characters are what we call anti-heroes. For Taylor Swift fans, you know what I'm talking about. just trying to get the next generation in here somewhere. The anti-heroes represent both the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov, and they really are combating the inner conflict represented as an outer conflict. And if that isn't the stories that we have in the Torah, I don't know what is. So as a result, every time my school changed or my friends changed, the superheroes were there for me. And later on in life, when I had the opportunity to finally ascend to being the editor or the manager of the Batman franchise at DC Comics, in a way, it's kind of like when Obi-Wan Kenobi had to sacrifice himself for Luke, Lahavdil, for Luke Skywalker to ascend to being a Jedi Knight. I also had the opportunity to become the rabbi of Batman who had been my rabbi.
Wow. The metaphors are just all over the place. I could engage in any path here forward. But let's just pick Batman let's ignore Star Wars for just a minute. Let's pick Batman. So Batman, for me, it's the least Jewish of all of the superheroes. Okay. I reference Superman all the time from the Bima. Okay. Kal-El, everything. There's so much. Everything about Superman to me is Jewish, and I mean, Batman is, Spider-Man. We could talk about as Jewish. I could go down the list of Jewish superheroes.
Right. Well, you know how you tell when a superhero is Jewish, right?
The last name.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's Goldman, Silverman, Batman, Superman.
That's
Sorry to interrupt.
So let's talk a little bit about Bruce Wayne and Batman, and how he rabbied you and you rabbied him, and how that relationship began.
Sure.
Okay? How did you relate to Batman and Bruce Wayne growing up?
It's an interesting question, because I never really thought about why was I drawn, pun intended, to Batman specifically. I think probably because of Robin. Robin was the sidekick, and he wore this bright, colorful outfit. He got to hang out with the superheroes, so I could have Robin as my aspirational character. And I think also because Batman was the most human of characters. And if you're asking how he could be Jewish or relatably or aspirationally Jewish, it's because, like all of us, we are the people of the book, or as I like to say, the people of the comic book. And we use our intellect and our resources, whatever is at hand, in order to make the world a better place, the old Tikkun Olam. And if there is a character in comics and superheroes that represents that the most, to me, that's Batman. Because after all, if I worked hard enough, if I studied hard enough, many times the detective aspect of Batman is pushed to the side. On the latest iteration of Batman, the Batman, that's a prominent part. And I think that's a very important part for us Jews. And I'm glad that it's being embraced again. So if I work hard enough and I study hard enough, and frankly, I gather enough wealth to be able to pay for everything that I need to do in my superhero activities, I could theoretically be Batman. And you can't say that about any other superhero.
No, you can't. When I read Batman, or when I see Batman, especially Christopher Nolan's Batman, which has come to define, I mean, there was Michael Keaton's Batman, and now Christian Bale has come to define Batman a different way.
Right. And it'll always be Adam West to me.
It'll always, Adam West.
Right. And by the way, I want to set Adon Olam to Adon Olam Asher Balak B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra.
Isn't it amazing? Adon Olam always works, no matter what it is you're talking about. Okay. So Batman is very much a reclusive character. I mean, we think of Judaism. Judaism is found in the community, and Batman ends into the cave, and he heads into the cave. He lives in the mansion. He is a loner, right? He's parentless. I mean, he's an orphan. There's so much about Batman where you could say, why these don't fit the Jewish tropes. It is, in fact, the most human of all of the superheroes, and his humanity unfolds in this kind of reclusive, vengeful manner. Is that? Would you accept that?
First of all, I'm appreciating this Talmudic discourse on Batman.
Of course. What are we going to talk about? The Haggadah for the whole show?
Absolutely not. This is right. Masechet Dark Knight.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right.
So I'm going to turn it around on you.
Batman.
Yeah,
yes.
That's very
there
good.
You go.
Right. Obviously, you're doing Daf Yomi right
That's
now.
Right. That's right.
Much better. Right. Edit mine out. Use his. Much better. Much better. I'm going to turn it around on you. Let's think of a figure from our historical milieu who lived in a cave for a long time. And why did he live in a cave? Who can you think of?
I can think of Shimon Bar Yochai.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And why did he live in the cave for a long time?
Because he couldn't stand the way that the world looked.
Right.
No, I mean, it's and again, if the author of the Zohar is the emblematic character of that Batman is meant to follow, then there is a Jewish path. There's a Jewish tradition that feeds into Batman.
Right.
Sure.
So what I'm going to say about that is when Batman was 10 years old or so, depending on the Secret Origin version that you're following, the Girsa that you're following, if you will, he experienced the ultimate trauma. And as I'm talking about fiction, I'm also, I can't help that my mind goes to why I'm wearing the sticker and why you're wearing the dog tag, that we have the hostages in Israel, being held in Gaza, but the Israeli hostages in mind right now.
Right.
So while it seems perhaps a little bit distasteful to be talking about a fictional trauma, I think that fiction can illuminate your realpolitik, if that's the right word. So forgive me, folks. While I know there are real people out there suffering, I hope that this will be inspirational for you to take into your regular lives to be able to make a difference in the real world. Batman experienced a trauma when he was 10 years old. He never grew up from being that 10-year-old. He decided he's going to dress as a bat and he's going to go out and fight crime in order to prevent what happened to him from happening to anybody else. In a way, putting on the mask, putting on the armor is his cave.
Right.
And his Zohar is going out into the world and making a difference, again, through his intellect and his wealth and his skills.
All his toys.
Exactly. All those wonderful toys.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in terms of the family aspect that you touched on earlier, that was very important in my Batman work. And to me, there was a spiritual through line from the Batman Year One series that pretty much began my tenure by the marvelous Frank Miller, and No Man's Land, the series that I conceived that ended my 10-year run, or I should say concluded. It never ended because it's still becoming movies and television shows and everything else. We were talking earlier about the Gotham TV series on Fox. Well, the fifth season is No Man's Land. What is the Dark Knight Rises? The Dark Knight Rises. No Man's Land. Never thought it was filmable, but that's another story entirely. So my idea was that Batman started as a loner. He said, I've got to do this all myself, or it's not valid.
Right.
Through the years, he built his Batman family. He took on an adopted son, Robin. Right. There have been actually several Robins, and then you get Batgirl or the Batgirls. You get Oracle. You have associated characters, Black Canary, Green Arrow, so on and so forth. And then when you get to No Man's Land, you get to a period of time when he says, this hasn't worked out. Gotham City is as bad as it's ever been, if not worse. I must be doing this wrong. I should be closing myself off to family and returning to my roots, the grim and gritty loner. Right. And through the course of No Man's Land, he actually learns that his real superpower is his family.
Right.
And I think that there's a strong Jewish through-line message in that.
So if you're reading Bava Batman with me on a daily and doing Daf Yomi with me, I'm sure that there ends up being a conversation in there somewhere who the best Batman is. So you've already said that your choice is Adam West. My choice, let's say, is Christian Bale. We end up at this place where that's, we can both agree and to disagree, but we both have respect for one another's selections.
That is the Jewish way.
That is the Jewish way. That's the way that Jews argue. But then we end up in a different kind of conversation somewhere in the Masechet about who the worst Batman is. And I mean, when you watch George Clooney or Val Kilmer, or I don't know who your worst selection would be, would it be one of those two? I mean, does it hurt you? Does it pain you to see someone portray Batman like that?
No, because somebody's worst Batman is somebody else's best Batman. Everybody had an entree point or an entry point.
You think somebody thinks that George Clooney is the best Batman?
I'm sure there are people out there who really enjoyed that because for them, that is their conception of Batman. They can't take this stuff too seriously.
Really?
Why so serious? And yes. So I think there's somebody out there and some buddies out there. I even have a warm place in my heart because I visited that set. That was the Batman movie set that I happened to visit. And I had a wonderful set of encounters with Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter, in which he said to me, and I remember this vividly, he said to me, much of the movie is not going to be going in the direction that you probably thought it was going to, but there are interactions between Alfred, the surrogate father, and Bruce Wayne, Batman, that I think you will really like and appreciate. And if you remember from that movie, they really do form a very tight family bond. And those are emotional, resonant scenes.
Okay.
So in every quote unquote bad Batman, there's still some really good Batman to be had.
Terrific. In my mind, I always picture in the making of a Batman movie, there's an ADR session at the very end after they've shot the whole movie.
Yeah.
Where the director, and let's just imagine Christopher Nolan, just because it's the most recent with Christian Bale, where they have to capture the line.
Right. And
I'm Batman.
Growl.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm Batman. And he says, all right, now darker. I'm Batman. Now again, I'm Batman. A little bit more energy. I'm Batman. Is there, I mean, you sit there and listen to every I'm Batman, and it's like the James Bond line.
Yeah.
Right. In your mind, how do you hear the I'm Batman? Because it's been just progressively darker and darker and more inaudible for the last decade and a half.
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. So what does that sound like to you?
The animated Batman voice.
Yeah.
He nailed it, and I think universally everybody is doing. Everybody agrees.
So give me your Kevin Conroy.
Oh, I'm not as good as you. You did it so well right now in so many different line takes that right here, I'm going to ask the editor, do me a favor. I'm going to move my lips now, and I want you to take the ADR, which, by the way, folks, stands for automatic dialogue replacement. It's when you overdub later on because this original sound wasn't good. So I'm going to ask you to take that and ADR me with his original.
I'll do it right now in real time. Ready?
Oh, by the way, this is great. Ready? Yeah. Go.
I'm Batman.
We'll be right back, folks, with Rabbi Nolan Lebovitz and Gorf. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Last time on Thinking Aloud, we covered Gorf's upbringing. And now we pivot to...
Okay, sorry, this is a total digression, but my daughter lives in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Hello to my entire family. I don't mean to single out Ashira, but I'm thinking of this. You said the word pivot.
Yeah.
We're all Friends fans here.
Mm-hmm.
She was moving out of her apartment.
Yeah.
She had me and the father of one of her roommates moving the couch.
Up and down the stairs?
And exactly.
So you have to say it.
We got stuck, and she took out the camera, and she said,
pivot?
You know what to do.
Yeah.
So we have video. Pivot! All right. I'm not going to let you get a single sentence out now.
Let's talk about a Haggadah, because that's what we're here. We're trying to sell Haggadot, okay?
Well, we're trying to inspire people through the Haggadah to embrace their Jewish heritage and the holiday of freedom.
And the live action nature of the new Koren Haggadah.
Yes.
And it's right here for everybody to see. What inspired you to focus in on the Haggadah first before all of the other material that you've now translated into this live action series?
I will give you two answers. One is the spiritual answer and one is the prosaic answer, and I'll do them in reverse order. The prosaic answer is I've long worked in the combination of Judaism and sequential storytelling, which is a fancy way of saying any medium that uses the combination of words and pictures fused together as still images in combination to tell a story. Comic books, graphic novels, storyboard. I mean, you're a filmmaker, so you can relate. All we're doing here with the Jewish graphic novels is we are making a movie, but we're halting in the storyboard phase and then printing it. That's what this is. This is a movie, folks, and it's one that you can take to your Seder table, and your Savta can't complain about it. It's legit, folks.
It's legit.
Yes.
So
thank you.
So as I turn through, first of all, it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And it's exciting.
Drawn by Erez Tzadok, an Israeli artist living in Netanya.
Wow.
And I want to give credit where credit is due, particularly because my modus operandi is to use Israeli artists and Israeli creators, for that matter, as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I was just in Israel, which is a subject for another time. And I want to give a shout out to the Israeli Animation College, which along with me, we're partnering together on the very first training program for Israeli artists to learn how to do graphic novels on the level of Batman and the Avengers. And that program is launching right now. And we're looking forward to doing what the folks in Israeli television did, which is, with Shtisel and Fauda and everything else, they figured out and conquered television. Well, folks, we're going to let Israel conquer graphic novels. The next great Batman is going to come out of Israel, God willing.
God willing. So here we are, the splitting of the sea. This is B'tzeit Yisrael Mimitzrayim during Hallel. We have a special melody that we sing at VBS. B'tzeit Yisrael Mimitzrayim Beit Yaakov. It's very unique to us. And here we see the sea splitting, and we see Moses in the middle of the Sea of Reeds. I mean, the book is the Haggadah is so well thought out in terms of making it feel action-packed. I mean, even in Haggadah, you have a family of goats walking away at the very end.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I don't want to ruin it. So I shouldn't ruin it for everybody who's never been to a Passover
I didn't answer your
before.
question before, which I think you're getting at here, which is why the Passover Haggadah. So the prosaic answer is I loved combining Judaism and sequential storytelling. And I do a weekly cartoon that's in a bunch of Jewish newspapers. If you don't know what newspapers are, ask your elders. And and it's also online at Jewish Cartoon. Instagram, Facebook, the usual socials. And I'd wanted to do a long form graphic novel that combined obviously my knowledge at the highest level of making graphic novels with something from Judaism. And I had a bunch of projects in mind. And I sat down with somebody, in fact, the Dinner family, who are credited on the bottom here. And yes, it's a little confusing. It says the Dinner edition, and you're thinking, yeah, of course, we're having supper.
That's exactly right. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's a little confusing, but their last name really is Dinner.
Oh.
And they said to me, all right, we want to support you in your passion.
Yep.
Show us a bunch of projects. And they said, okay, the Haggadah, we're going to do that one. And why the Haggadah? Because the Haggadah is the ultimate guidebook of Judaism.
Right.
People think it's the Prince of Egypt or it's the Ten Commandments. It's the Exodus. The Exodus is in there, but really it's like a Wikipedia page or a Sparks Notes book of a compendium of all of Jewish wisdom and knowledge and parables and history and archaeology and ritual. And I could go on and on and on. You read the Haggadah and you've got Judaism in a nutshell. Now, here's the trick. You're a filmmaker, you're a writer, you're a creator. You know about 3-act structure. We're in Hollywood. We can get into the weeds a little bit. The 3-act structure is, for those who aren't familiar, the format that you use in order to structure a story in modern dramaturgy. Now, the Haggadah isn't that. It's jumping around all over the place. There is actually, and in one of my talks, I talk about the secret origin of the Haggadah, why it's structured the way it is, and it's mind-blowing once you know what the secret is. But in any event, my challenge was, how do I take this disparate collection of knowledge and wisdom and enforce a 3-act structure on it so that you are getting the Passover experience in the same way that you would experience, say, a Dark Knight movie?
Right.
That was the challenge, and this is the result.
Wow. I live in the middle when he says, I'm Moses. I'm Moses.
By the way, I'm going to do that this year.
That's right.
Thank you. You're forever going to be part of my Passover Haggadah.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Graphic novel experience.
Let's talk about creativity in general and how you apply it to Judaism. Because I think that this is a challenging notion for a lot of people, which is, I'm really good at this. I'm good at cooking, or I'm good at painting, or I'm good at storytelling or accounting, or whatever it might be. And my Judaism lives in this other place, in this other box, right? These are two separate versions of me. One is Bruce Wayne, one is Batman. And you have brought them together seamlessly in your life. What has that meant to you?
It's been a blessing. Obviously, at the same time, there are challenges. And anybody who's in Jewish institutional anything knows fundraising is a big part of it. And that goes along with it. But it's given a lot of people an opportunity to do two things. One is to engage in their Judaism in a creative way through the products that we are creating. And the second way is for them to engage in their Judaism creatively through their own lens. And I'll tell you a story about that. This just happened actually the other day. Every weekend, thank God, I'm being given the opportunity to be a scholar in residence at various different synagogues all around the world. I was in the Pico Robertson area, and I was giving a talk between Mincha and Mariv, the two evening services that conclude the Shabbat, the Sabbath day. You can tell that I'm a code switcher because I'm able to go between all these various different terms. But again, all joking aside, you can see it. That's the reason why we have the transliteration of the Hebrew inside the Haggadah. I don't presume that everybody has the same knowledge of Judaism, and I want everybody to be able to engage in it together. So I want to provide all the possible ways that people need to understand what we're talking about. And I was working out on Sunday morning, And there was a guy who came up to me after the workout and said, oh, I remember you. This is the third time I'm seeing you across this weekend. And before this, I'd never seen you before in my life.
Really?
And I recognized him because on Thursday or Friday when I was working out, he was next to me and I was helping him with his form and giving him some tips. And we forged a little bit of a moment there. And that was it. So I said to him, confused, I don't understand. We worked out together on Thursday or Friday, and we worked out together today. What was the third time? And he said, oh, you don't recognize me. I was at your talk in the synagogue on Shabbat afternoon. And on Shabbat afternoon, what we did was I took a portion of the Megillat Esther, the Koren Megillat Esther graphic novel, and I showed them the original text, because what we do in this style of book is we only use the original Hebrew and the translation. We don't add any words. We don't take away. I want to use the illustrations, the sequential illustrations as the new midrash. You get the text and the subtext out of the combination of words and pictures. So I took the words and then I guided everybody in an exercise. How would you, I turned them into my studio. They were my writer's room. How would you break down these words into illustrations? And then I showed them afterwards my script. And then I showed them afterwards the resulting artwork. And then afterwards, as the coup de grace, I showed them all of the research, the archaeology research, the historical research, and so forth that went into making these the most not only enjoyable and fun, but authentic and authoritative versions, visual versions that you could possibly have. And he said, would you like to know what I got out of your talk? And I thought he's going to say, well, I learned this about Megillat Esther. And by the way, in a separate conversation, because you are now the world's leading expert in Megillat Esther.
No, exactly.
And we have to sit down and pour through this together because
I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
happy to.
you have to give me all of your insights. I have so much to learn from you. I'm so excited. So I expected him to give me some kind of an intellectual answer, but he said something that in all these years and in all these places, to paraphrase Indiana Jones, it's not the time, sweetheart, it's the miles. Or it's not the miles, sweetheart, it's the time. Whichever way it goes, forgive me. Some nerd out there is going to correct me.
Always.
Hi, nerds. I'm one of you. So he said to me, what I got out of your talk was, you can live your dream Jewishly. And I just loved that, because that was clearly the subtext of what I was doing. I found my niche. I found my way of combining my occupation with my passion, with my life, by doing Jewish graphic novels. And what he thought was, oh, well, if you can do that, then I can do that too. And I'll jump to, I was in Newton, Massachusetts, and I was at Temple Shalom. And the rabbi there, you've probably experienced this, something was happening where, the dinner wasn't quite ready yet, and she had to kill 10 minutes on the pulpit. It was Kabbalat Shabbat. And she said that she's going to give a little bit of a vort, as it were. And she talked about in Pirkei Avot, the section where Hillel and Shammai are saying that if you're going to have an argument, one that is for the sake of Shamayim, for the sake of heaven, that is laudatory. Right. Is that the word, laudatory? Am I getting that right? It's good.
It should be praised.
It should be praised. Thank you. One that is not is mundane. And I thought this just encapsulates everything that I am trying to do in my life for myself and also for other people, to show them that you can take your Judaism and you can infuse it into whatever you do, wherever you do it. And it will elevate whatever you're doing, not only for yourself, but for the world as well. And that's why my motto here is, and I said this to the guy, my motto is, make Judaism your superpower.
It's beautiful. And so we live in a dark moment right now in Jewish history, in the Jewish narrative. We live in a Batman moment. We live in dark times. And I think a lot of people are searching right now, what can we do to help Israel, to help shed light on Israelis being held in captivity in Gaza, to help win the war? That's not just writing a check. Writing a check is very important to help all the initiatives and all the programs that are going on in Israel to help support, but people want to do more. You're an incredibly creative person who's managed to merge these different aspects of your Jewish identity together. What do you recommend?
Before I answer the question, you said something before that was quite wonderful that I wanted you to give as forspice as introduction. What is your orientation when you tell people, yes, you can help and here's how? What's your answer?
I usually recommend that social media is an incredible tool. It's a blank canvas on which people can paint and shed light on whatever it is that they think helps them in that moment. So you watch a YouTube video of an Israeli musician singing to soldiers, and you find that uplifting. Load it onto your social media so that other people get to see it. You find an article that you think is brilliant. Load it onto social media. You want to write, today is day 160. Load it onto social media. Just write 160 to try to bring in awareness to what it is that you're going through in that moment. Everybody has a voice. And you don't need to, it doesn't need to be a decision about, if I can't get onto the front page of the New York Times, if my writings can't get onto the front page of the New York Times, and I can't, speak before the United Nations, to pick two venues that have certainly been devalued through this process, then what good is what it is that I have to say in the world? And I would say it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. We need every Jewish voice at this point to be focused on pushing in the same direction and bringing light and inspiration to the same cause. Now I hand it over to you.
Right. When you go to Israel, the sign you see everywhere is Biyachad Nenatzeach.
Right. Together we will win.
Right. But I translate it a little bit differently. My preference is united we will persevere. And the reason why is because victory is very hard fought. No more so than now. And the reason why I think of Biyachad Nenatzeach right now is because this is a little bit of, not foreshadowing, what's the word, a callback. This is a bit of a callback to what I talked about in New York City on the Shabbat of Purim. The parsha, as you may recall, was Parshat Vayikra. Mm-hmm. And the way, if you look in the Sefer Torah, the letter Aleph of Vayikra is always small. And there are lots of different interpretations. This is my interpretation, and I'm really summarizing here. I'm really condensing. Because when Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, was calling out the rules and laws to all of the Jews, he was saying in his humble way, everybody is part of our tent. Everybody. We need everybody. Biyachad nenatzeach. And the Aleph is the small person, the person who maybe is smaller of stature or less of wealth or less of intellect or seemingly less of ability. No. There's nothing less. Everybody has a place. Everybody is a critical piece to the puzzle. And without you, the small Aleph, whoever you might be, don't feel like a small Aleph. You are one of the big letters. You are actually the big Aleph, like in Breshit, and we need you. And I think that is my answer to your question, which is everybody has something to bring. Everybody should be writing a letter in the people of the book, and as I say, the people of the comic book. And I'll give you an example of how I did it, hopefully to inspire all of you to be able to find your own path as well. Whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or a homemaker or a teacher or whatever it may be, you have a particular way of looking at the world and bringing something special to the world. When I was in Israel very recently, and you mentioned in the extraordinarily long and detailed introduction that I do Jewish cartoon workshops. And what I do is I empower people with the skills that they already have to draw a stick figure and to write words on a page, except for doctors. We need somebody to help you with that. To do cartoons that express their ideas and their Jewish messages directly. You know, in the Haggadah, it says, Lo yodei malach, lo yodei shaliach. There's no in between here. It's you putting your ideas down, and then we share it with people. So I had the opportunity to work with the Nifunim, the families that are displaced from the Gaza envelope and the northern communities all the way by Lebanon. And we did cartoons together. And I had to conduct all of this in Hebrew, which was challenging because I discovered that we don't have some Hebrew terms for some of the technical things that we do in comics. We don't have a word for penciling or inking or lettering. So we're not only building a new economic category in Israel, we're actually building the terminology as well, which is very exciting. But my point being that And you can see, speaking of social media, you can go on my Instagram, Jewish Cartoon, and you can see the video that I made of the cartoonists, everyday people who are expressing their daily existence of cramming a family hundreds of kilometers away from where they normally live into a hotel room and trying to make life normalized for their family and their kids. Many of them left without the clothes on their backs. Right. And they need the help and support. But it's not just help and support materially, as you said, it's also the psychological help and support. And you can see this on the video. The best feedback that I got was, and I'll translate this for you, that one of the ladies said, "This is amazing because it's like it's being therapeutic on the page."
Amazing.
This is what I do. All of you have things that you do. Figure out a way to contribute your abilities. I don't like to say talents. I like to say Ruach HaKodesh. Your godly peace that's inside of you, figure out a way to use that to help the Jewish people, to help Israel, and again, to make Judaism your superpower.
Well, each and every year, I get asked by congregants and community members, which is the Haggadah that I should purchase this year. I have a collection of Haggadot, and here is the answer. This year, it's the Passover Haggadah Graphic Novel by Jordan Gorfinkel, Erez Sadok, the number one selling Passover Haggadah Graphic Novel on Amazon.com. Gorf, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I want to wish you Chag Sameach. Okay? Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach, citizen. Pleasure.